Sunlight filtered through the canopy, pooling on the mossy floor of the hut. Sparkle stood in the center, her presence a soft silver pulse. Creatures gathered near the threshold, drawn by the steady heat of her glow. Then, the rhythm broke. Without warning, the sky turned charcoal gray. Thick, suffocating clouds slammed shut over the sun, erasing the horizon in seconds. The trees groaned, their branches bowing under an invisible weight. Flowers curled their petals tight, sealing themselves against the sudden chill. Sparkle looked down at her hands. The silver light was stuttering. It flickered, dimmed, and pulsed with a frantic rhythm. She reached out to touch the wall, but the wood felt cold, stripped of the life she had poured into it. The darkness was not just an absence of light, it was a physical pressure, heavy and hungry, feeding on the very air. Her glow retreated, pulling inward until she was barely a spark in the encroaching gloom. She looked toward the forest, now silent and gray. The forest was dying, and her own light was failing to hold back the tide. Sparkle gripped her staff and stepped out into the suffocating gray. The forest had turned hostile. Jagged briar patches blocked the path, their thorns long and sharp, reaching out to snag her as she moved. She pushed through, feeling the sting of the branches against her skin, each tear drawing a flicker of her silver light away into the dark. Her glow dimmed with every step, turning from a steady pulse to a faint, wavering shimmer. She reached the edge of the stream, the water black and churning with ice. She waded in. The cold hit her like a physical blow, numbing her feet, and climbing up her legs, stealing the warmth she desperately needed. She stumbled, her staff sinking into the soft mud. To keep moving, her breath came in ragged gasps, visible as small gray puffs in the freezing air. Every movement cost her energy. She pulled herself onto the opposite bank, her light now reduced to a mere glimmer. Ahead, a massive, gaping hole tore into the rock face. The black mist coiled around her ankles, cold and damp. Sparkle stood at the threshold of the cavern, her staff trembling in her grip. The darkness within was not merely a lack of light, it was an active, heavy void that seemed to pull at her very essence. She took a half step back, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The silence of the forest outside was absolute. She closed her eyes, picturing the curled gray petals of the flowers and the drooping, lifeless branches of the ancient trees. The image anchored her. She forced her feet to move. With a sharp intake of breath, she crossed the threshold and stepped into the absolute ink-like darkness. The light of the world vanished instantly behind her. She reached out, her fingers brushing against damp, jagged stone walls that felt like frozen skin. She stood still, straining to find any sense of direction in the suffocating gloom. Then, a sound cut through the stillness, a low, rhythmic, and haunting sob. She did not hesitate again. Guided only by the misery of that sound, she pushed forward into the abyss, her footsteps silent against the uneven rock. The sobbing grew louder, a jagged sound that scraped against the cavern walls. Sparkle rounded a sharp bend in the tunnel and stopped. In the center of a wide, hollow chamber, a small, hunched figure sat curled into a tight ball. This was the Shadow Sprite. It shook violently, and with every shudder, a fresh pulse of thick black mist erupted from its frame, swirling upward like ink in water. The air in the chamber was freezing, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Sparkle did not speak. She moved across the uneven stone floor, her own light now a flickering, dying spark. She reached the Shadow Sprite and knelt. The creature was ice cold, its surface absorbing the little light she had left. Sparkle placed her hand firmly on the sprite's trembling shoulder. She did not hold back. She pushed every remaining ounce of her silver energy forward. The light surged from her palm, thick and warm, wrapping around the Shadow Sprite like a glowing blanket. The black mist hit the silver barrier and hissed, dissolving instantly. The Shadow Sprite stopped shaking. It lifted its head, its eyes wide, reflecting the brilliant, silver warmth. The darkness that had choked the cavern for so long shattered. Above them, the thick charcoal clouds tore apart. A beam of pure golden sunlight pierced the cave entrance, striking the forest floor. Outside, the trees straightened, their branches shedding the gloom. Flowers popped open, petals unfurling in brilliant bursts of color. Sparkle and the Shadow Sprite stepped out into the warmth. They walked to a fallen log covered in thick, damp moss and sat side by side. The Shadow Sprite looked at its own hands, now steady and clear. Sparkle watched as her silver glow mingled with the shadow's newfound clarity. The forest began to hum. Insects buzzed, leaves danced in the breeze, and the heavy silence was replaced by the rhythm of life. The forest was whole again. and the warmth between them proved that light, when shared, held a strength that could mend the world.